Alright, hello everyone. This is a tutorial for AC mobility, and today we'll learn how to set up engines, mobility, and fuel. You'll learn every useful thing, every tip, and maybe get a basic understanding of the mobility, and maybe it will help you with following other tutorials. Alright, let's start. So the very first thing you want to do is to make tool description appear if you don't have it on as default. So as you can see on the top left of the screen, there is a description of the tool, the name, and so on. And to enable that, you go to Q menu to drawing and try to find draw HUD. And once you found that, click on that and it should show the description of the tool and so on. Right, once it's done, please, each time when you're learning a new tool or maybe an add-on that has a tool, usually it provides you with useful, let's say, tutorials and description. Alright, so let's open the mobility tab right here. And as you can see, there are a lot of like engines, gearboxes, fuel tanks, and so on. So we are going to start with engines, and let's do it. As you can see, I've got a lot of engines, and they are a part of a custom extension that is not mandatory to have, but I just keep it for fun. Alright, so let's find a default engines. So as you can see, there are like petrol engines, diesel engines, and so on. Alright, so we're gonna choose one of them. Let's say we're gonna use the diesel one. Alright, we got the diesel one out. Every engine, every gearbox, every fuel type provides you with provides the description. So as you can see, you can spawn this one. It tells you the useful information such as fuel type, power band, and everything. Alright, so now let's link it. So now we know the type of the engine. We gotta make a fuel tank. One note that fuel tanks are not mandatory for every engine type, and the cases are rare when it's mandatory all the time. But this exact engine doesn't require fuel tank, but you're going to have less performance than the performance you're going to have with a fuel tank linked. Okay, we open the fuel tank app tab. And you can choose the size here, or the fuel type. So I'm gonna choose diesel, have a default size, and let's do the linkage. As you can see on the top left, as the description says, left click to spawn the entity of your choice, and right click to link an entity to another. So to link engine to the fuel tank, you press right click once on the engine and do the same thing for the fuel tank. Alright, it says the link was successful. It doesn't create any rope with the fuel tank. So to unlink entity, you hold E or any other key you have bended to plus use. You hold E by default, right click on the engine, and same thing for the fuel. Alright, that should work. So it says the unlink was successful. Let's now do the gearbox setup. As you can see, there are various gearboxes such as transfer, differential, CVD, 4-speed, 6-speed gearboxes, clutches, CVDs, regenerative steering. Okay, so let's start from the very beginning, is differentials. Well, if you understand what differential is, it is pretty simple, but in case of Garry's mod, ACE building, usually differentials are used for vehicle access. So let's say you got one main gearbox in the center and you link two differentials, one on the front and one on the rear, to connect it to the wheels, so to transfer the power. And as you can see, differentials have only one gear. I mean, technically they don't have any gears, but well, they provide you with one. Here you can change the ratio of the gearbox. This is not well, IRL setting. It is somewhat custom. So as far as I remember, it is inverted, but you can find some math in the internet regarding how to make a proper ratio in AC to IRL, and that's not very hard. You just divide a number by something. Each gearbox has maximum torque rating. So each engine produces torque, and to maintain that torque, you need a good enough gearbox. So the differential pretty much lets us use almost any engine. So we gotta spawn this one. This is inline one, and there are different models. You can use them for different reasons. There are dual clutch as well. You can see the model changes a bit. The only difference they have is, first of all, well, the model is different, and they give you dual clutch differential lets you do independent clutch and brake for both sides. Meanwhile, this one lets you do for only one. For all of them, but only one. So, okay, let's link this one. And first of all, to link it to something, we need a wheel, right? So we need something to spin. I'm gonna spawn a wheel, random wheel, or any other prop. Feel free to use anything. It will spin it anyway. I'm gonna make a basic setup for spinning the wheel. Got a base in team using axis center. Click on the wheel and the box later. So now it spins. Okay, so now we link engine to the gearbox. Note you cannot do you cannot link gearbox to engine. You can link engine to gearbox. So practically speaking, why would you want your engine to rotate? And now we'll link gearbox to the wheel. Alright, now the setup is done. Now we need to link engine to the fuel tank. Pretty much the same thing. You just right click to an entity to another. Okay. Now we're gonna make it running. I'm gonna use constant values for making the engine run all the time. And before I do that, I'm gonna make fuel active. So currently, as you can see, it says it is not in use. So to activate it, you need to link active input to something that is either one or more than one. I'm gonna link it to constant value, or you can link it to any other various E2s or anything else that provides you with output greater than 1 or 1. Okay, now as you can see, it says it's in use. And now let's do the same thing with the engine. Alright. The engine is currently running. As you can see in the top left, it says the active is 1, the heat goes up, and the fuel use is 2. And as you can see, the fuel is getting down and down. Alright. Now, let's do the throttle. Well, in this case, I'm gonna show you simple way of just how to use it. You'll see how it should act and everything. So instead of lever, you can use anything else. Let's say E2, constant value, just up to your needs. So I'm gonna use the wiring tool that you can find on WireMod. Search this, and yeah, it's gonna wire it. Alright, so currently the lever is 0 at level 0, and once I start changing the throttle, as on the top left you can see, throttle goes up, and the engine revs go up as well. Alright. So as you can see, the engine is currently running, the wheel's spinning. Now let's do the gearbox setup, the differential setup. So let's say if you want to use brakes, you need to do the following thing as we did with engine. So have an input linked to something greater than 1 or 1. Okay, so to clutch the gearbox, we need a value. So let's say I'm gonna put another constant value for that reason, and I'm gonna clutch it. So now the clutch is applied, and the wheel is not gonna spin. Once I let off the clutch, the wheel starts spinning. Alright, now I want to do the same thing, but for brakes. The brake value is heavily reliant on the wheel weight. So let's say I'm gonna apply 900 kilograms to the wheel. So it weighs 900 kilograms. And now I wanted to use brakes. Let me just spin it for a while. And the amount of time it will take to stop the wheel from spinning varies from braking power. You can see it stops pretty slowly. Alright, now let me do the same, but with a number of 4. As you can see, now it stopped pretty rapidly. Also, the wheel weight matters for the acceleration, so keep that in mind. Alright, now let me turn up the engine, let it cool off. It's not required, just saying that. Okay, so now let's do the basic gearboxes. As for transfer, it is pretty much the same thing. It's like for low and high range and tank turning usually, so it provides you different well, it's usually for changing the direction you want to go. So let's say if you want to have the same speed going forward and backwards, you can use the transfer case for that. Alright, so okay, let's do the 4-speed gearbox. As for automatic, I do not recommend using it because nobody actually knows how to use them, and they're pretty much doing the same thing as default gearboxes. So I'm gonna use let's say inline medium. Does it have enough torque rating? No, it doesn't. Let's use the large one then. Okay, it has 10k. Good enough. Alright, now let's link the gearbox. As you can see, you can link it this way. And I can link it this way. Doing this following linkage process. Alright, so as you can see, you can change the ratios again. By either like going backwards or forward. So, alright. To make it go backwards, you just do negative, and to make it go forward, you go positive. Also, keep in mind that negative and positive may be reverted if you, let's say, turn the gearbox this way. It will just like revert them. So keep that in mind. So yeah. Okay, let me apply the settings. Also, quick note, you cannot change the gearbox settings by just applying a different model. You can do that with the same model. So let's say I got gear 1 ratio as 0.1, and now I want it to have 0.2, and it will update it. Okay. This gearbox has such inputs such as gear, gear up, gear down, clutch, and brake. Well, we've seen clutch and brake. Let's figure out what the gear and gear up and gear down does. Alright, so gear sets the gear of this gearbox. So this gearbox has 4 gears, and if I want to set it to gear 4, I'm going to use, let's say, constant value or anything else you want to use. I already got a number of 4. And I can change the, let me debug it first. So you can see the current gear is 1, and the ratio is 2. Alright. Now I'm changing the gear to 4th, and the ratio switches to 4. To minus negative 0.1. If I wanted to change to, let's say, first gear, it is going to be 0.1. As for gear up and gear down, it's usually used for manual, increasing gear above the current one, or decreasing. Usually people use it for manual cars, manual gearboxes. Okay, so let me show you how it's done. Let's say I got an input with a value of 1, and I'm gonna link it to gear up, and another input with value of 1 to gear down. Let me make it running. Alright. Note that you can go to gear 0, which is pretty much neutral. As you can see, the wheel is spinning. Make it like spin really slow. Alright, you can see the wheel spinning. Now I'm gonna increase the gear to 3rd. See how much time does it take to start spinning it fast enough. Okay, now let me go down to the 1st gear. And you see the ratio change the speed of rotation. Alright, so if I wanted to go backwards, I'm gonna change the gear to 4th. So now the wheel is spinning in other direction. Alright. So I hope that's all clear. Now let's disable the engine. Stop the wheel. And let's go to another gearbox type, which is CVT. So CVT is actually a gearbox that will adjust the ratio and keep an engine within the target RPM range, like constant peak performance. However, this comes at the cost of increased weight and limited torque ratings, as the description says. You can set up the minimum target RPM and maximum target RPM. So as you can see, another one input got added, which is CVT ratio. So it is a ratio that determines the basically determines the ratio itself. So yeah, okay, so I'm not gonna link it or anything. It does pretty much the same thing, it's just functions different. So as I said, it keeps the it allows you constant peak performance. So, and there goes clutches. They just serve basically brakes. Usually people use them for clutch or just brake, and I've seen people using it on helicopters and such, so yeah. Okay, next thing is regenerative steering. This is a double differential transmission. So basically neutral steering for tanks and cars. They have such feature. So if you've seen tanks in real life rotating around its axis, let's say, without going anywhere, that's pretty much regenerating steering. So it looks like double differential gearbox has a pretty high torque rating. And alright, so let's link it. I'm gonna show you how to use it properly. Got the wheels. Gotta make them rotate again. See if they rotate in the proper direction. Okay. Now I'm linking them. And linking engine to gearbox. So good. And this exact regenerating steering gearbox lets you do the steer rate. So the steer rate comes from -1 to 1. I'm gonna use lever for that to show the difference. I'm gonna link it. Okay, let me make it run. First of all, I'm gonna make it 1. As you can see, this wheel starts spinning to the right, and this one goes to the left. It is with the setting of steering rate of 1. If I make it -1, now this wheel goes to the left, and this one goes to the right. If I make it 0, come on, let me do 0. Whatever. I'm gonna make it constant value. If I make this 0, this one goes to the right, and this one goes to the right. Alright, so that's pretty much it about the gearbox section. Now let's do fuel tanks. Okay, fuel tanks. So AC provides you with currently with 3 types of fuel. First is diesel, second is electric, and third is petrol. Well, technically speaking, electric is not fuel, but it is what it is. And it lets you choose the size of the gearboxes. It provides you different information about its fuel or capacity or leaking. You can see the description of each, let's say, section. The fuel returns the ground fuel level, and so on. Alright, now we're gonna talk about refuel duty. As you can see, fuel type must be equal to the tank which you want to supply. So, if you have diesel fuel tank, you need to refuel it with a diesel fuel tank. Hope that makes sense. And to refuel it, you need to empty it a bit. So let's do the basic setup. Gonna waste a bit of fuel. Okay, hopefully we've wasted enough fuel to make it refuel. So the very first thing, I'm gonna activate the fuel tank, and I'm going to make this work. Refuel duty, I'm gonna make it like 1 or greater than 1. Once I link it, it will start refueling this fuel tank. Well, it's done in the one way, like one time. So as you can see, the fuel right now is matching the capacity. And here, it got moved to this one. That's pretty much it about fuel tanks. Alright, here's the thing I used it for. So I got my own electric charging station that you can find on ACE Discord server in the Stop Street channel. So this thing recharges the car battery one thing to note that you cannot charge a particular or refuel a particular fuel tank. So what it currently does, it refuels every fuel tank that doesn't have enough fuel to match the capacity in the certain radius. So let's say if there were, like, let's say 3 fuel tanks that needed fuel, it will refuel all of them. So you cannot make a refuel like one particular car or fuel tank when there is another one. So it's gonna refuel both of them. So I used this in the refuel in the electric charging station. So, and I just parented the battery to my base plate, and you can link your car, and it's gonna recharge it. Alright, that's all for today. Please, if you have any questions, make sure to leave them in comment sections. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to this channel, and have a good day. Bye bye.